Thank you very much, Lee, and congratulations on that interesting work you're doing. I want to ask you, with regards to all these coping strategies that you applied to the project, did you take them from experience on other projects, or from literature, or what was the source, and how come you decided to go for this particular coping strategies? And also, if anyone wants to access it online, or where could we see also the process of doing the journal and all the things that you talked about? Where could we find it?
So where we took it from, I guess that you're talking about the whole thing that we done rather than just the coping strategies exercise.
Yeah. You can
So,
also.
What my that I run, which is helping people with their well-being and their resilience, and I have been doing that for years. So every time that I went to a community, I would just use the exercises that I had already developed, depending on if people needed it. The research that we've done specifically for this project will be available online around the end of December. We're holding a conference at the start of December, and then as soon as that is finished and we tie up some loose ends, it will be available. I believe we'll have our own website called CRUA, that's CRUA.EU, so they will be available then, come around the end of December, and you'll be able to see all the research then.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if there's any other questions for Lee. Let's see, let's wait 1 second, otherwise we'll ask. Okay, there's a question for Lee. Hi Lee, thank you very much. I'm curious to know about the psychofactors in the workshop, meaning hope and optimism. How do you measure these factors?
So we created a evaluation that people would fill in at the end of their final workshop, and I'm just going to be very upfront, I am terrible with researchers' names. I never remember any, and people quite often think that's very bad of me, but I just don't, I'm afraid. But we've taken the resilience measures that I use quite often in different aspects, and we put them into that evaluation. People filled them out at the end of the workshop. That evaluation is not being completed by us, it's being completed by an outside agency, so I'm not just saying I'm brilliant. And that will be finished probably by the end of November, and then we'll know what effect it had.
Okay, thank you very much. See if there's something else.
May I ask Maureen a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Super duper, thank you. Maureen, I heard you were talking there about how psychosocial factors are provided for or not through agencies when they're working in disasters. What's been your experience of that? Because our experience here is that most agencies that are working in disasters just don't even think about it as a factor.
Yeah, well, I've had experience in the field, and there'll be people here who've had experience too. I think you start preparing with agents, just like you did in your workshop. You prepare with agencies before you get there. You offer to give them some idea of what psychosocial is in a very practical way. You talk about For example, I'll give an example. So I'm in New Zealand at the moment, and I'm invited to an emergency management, the whole country emergency management strategy planning for the next 10 years. And it's highly technical, so they're saying put questions on the board, whatever. This is just after an extended earthquake disaster in this country. Not one word of psychosocial anywhere. Okay, there's logistics. There's what we're doing about resilience and infrastructure, business infrastructure, recovery, economic recovery, all important. Nothing on psychosocial. So I put the question up there, and then they've had a workshop, and the workshop was around psychosocial. They realized it was a gap. So one of the things that can happen, it's too late when there's a disaster, although you can go into the field and work on it. Another example I'll give you is I did the country evaluation of psychosocial response in Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda in the Philippines. And people worked in areas where they could. But already the Philippine Red Cross was doing quite a lot around psychosocial and different aspects. And so some people collaborated, some people didn't. Some people just went in. Some people worked alongside distribution and started talking with the people, and then they'd had a joint training of volunteers. So it's not, this is one of the challenges still, I think, but this is, let's do it. Just as you put, these agencies might exist, people don't know how to access them. Well, people don't know how to access us or what we can provide often, because it's so nebulous. At the end of a disaster, they have more ideas, and we haven't even touched on how we look after responders and ourselves, yeah?
Yeah. Great, thank you very much, Maureen.
Yeah.
I have a question too for Maureen. I found a point that you said on future research really interesting. You talked about like how we can solve gaps between guidelines and practice in the field, and of course that's a very big topic. But I was thinking that maybe you've had some experiences where this has been done in a good way or something like that.
I think what the research is, not just me, but what the research, because what I did with this chapter is I put out alerts in several search engines, so anything around psychosocial and happening in the world that is coming up, grey literature and research. I tried to have an overview, so it's not just me, but what I saw and what is being reported in the research as well is that sometimes in head office they've heard of what psychosocial is, or some government agency has, but depending on whether the agencies are talking, we do things in silos often, and so this still happens. And I think perhaps what we can do in the big emergencies, there are clusters around what's going on, and I think it's important, let me try and be clear, what happens in different aspects of this disaster cycle. So I think we could start on preparation and mitigation now. In any place that we're working on, in the situations in the world, I'm living in New Zealand at the moment, the Pacific, Asia Pacific, has 87% of disaster situations. We know that there's going to be situations around this. What we don't know is what's happening with training and when people go out and when we need surge capacity. We've all seen this. People are arriving who haven't got much experience. Sometimes they're fine. Sometimes we have someone coming in and saying, where's my office? I need to set up, my consultancy here. And you're thinking, okay, we've got a problem. So I think there's a real gap between what's happening in the field. I've heard people recently say in Nepal there are people going around holding debriefings in the field with people. So we know that this is not good practice at the moment. So I think it's an ongoing communication around guidelines, what you're doing at the center, you know, training people, giving information, saying this does not work. Say, you know, it's giving from the beginning. This is an approach about people who have capacity. What Lee is doing is building on people's capacities. He's not going in and treating them as passive victims. So we all know this. I think it's there'll be many people listening perhaps who have got their own areas. What do they do in their own area?
Thank you very much.
It's still a gap.
Yes, yeah, it's a big topic, but we're running a bit out of time, but I have a question here for Lee. The question is, could you explain the ACT methodology more in detail?
Oh, good luck.
I will.
Maybe not too much in details because we don't have that much time. But yes.
Okay, I can see it from Nana. Nana, ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, and I find it a very exciting form of therapy. And it came about, as far as I know, as a bit of a reaction to cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is change your thoughts, change your thoughts. Your thoughts aren't right, so you change them. And now I've used that for myself and with other people, and it works sometimes, it doesn't work other times, depending on different things. Acceptance and commitment therapy says something quite different, and it comes from meditation, quite often Buddhist meditation, etc. It doesn't say change your thoughts, it's have a different relationship with your thoughts. So all these thoughts that you're having that are negative or make you not able to live the life you want, don't try and get rid of them. That's never going to happen. Just try to see them as not, your thoughts are not who you are, and your thoughts don't have to determine your actions. So it has some types of mindfulness training and meditation training in which you start to separate yourself from your thoughts. Your thoughts no longer control you. Your thoughts may whiz on forever and ever and ever, but you get to decide what you do. And when you're doing these sorts of techniques, you still have the thoughts. The emotions may be down a little bit, but that's not even the point of it. The point of it is to see that you are not controlled by the thoughts anymore. And then the second part of the therapy is, okay, once you've done this, it's to say, so how do you want to live your life? Now you're not controlled by thoughts, you're controlled by what you want. What is it that you want? And you go through a process of looking at your values and how you want to live your life. And I think that's the most exciting part almost, because it's just fantastic. It's something that a lot of therapy doesn't think about. And from my own experience, I find that a lot of people have come out of therapy maybe not having negative thoughts, but they still don't have their meaning and their purpose in life. And meaning and purpose in your life is what really makes you resilient to negative things happening and happy. It just makes you happy, and isn't that the point? As far as, I don't know if that's a bad summary, but that's my summary of what ACT is.
I think it's a good summary.
Thank you. That was really interesting. So we have another question, but I don't know if we have time. Let's see if it's not too long. Hello, Lee. You talked about giving people skills they can use for the rest of their lives. That is a huge gap in our PSS work at the Red Cross Crescent movement. For example, we train volunteers on stress, but we rarely give them practical skills. I hope we can learn from what you're doing. Okay, so it was a comment. That's really nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have anything to say, or?
Well, yeah, I can't talk for what other people have done, but I think that from what I've seen in the psychosocial stuff other people are doing, even talking through the sorts of coping mechanisms that you use, even talking about these issues at all, every time someone steps back and in a calm way considers what they do and how they do it, I think they are learning skills that they can use for the rest of their lives.
Very good. Okay, so if that's it, we'll finish the webinar. The recording will be available on the website of the pscenter.org, and we will also send it by email to the members of the research network and to other colleagues that participated. Thank you very much, Lee and Maureen, for this very two interesting presentations.
Thank you for the
Yeah,
opportunity.
thank you very much. And you're receiving thank yous from people on the messages.
Thank you
Bye,
everyone for listening.
everybody.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye-bye.
Go
Bye.
well. Go well.